Hades 2 is a game where you kill gods and myths, and I don't want to do that because I'm a pacifist. Well, I don't think I'm killing the bosses because they're back as soon as I start the next run, but still I'm attacking them, and that hurts me more than it hurts them. So I want to see if I can not do that. So I guess the first thing is, how do we do a pacifist run in a game like this? Because the enemies do have to be defeated for you to continue on. Attacking is out of the question because it's kinda in the name, and specials are just special attacks. Dashing and cast don't inherently do damage, but there are boons that can make them do damage, and those of course are out of the question. So if we can't defend ourselves, who can defend us? This guy, and this guy. Oh, sorry, this guy. Revenge. Sweet, sweet revenge. Zeus and Apollo have revenge boons where if you take damage from an enemy, they will damage that enemy back. And that's kind of good, but it's also kind of bad because you don't have infinite health, which means you can only take a certain amount of damage before you die. This is where Poseidon comes in. He's not reactive, he's more proactive. So instead of a revenge boon, he has this. See, Poseidon doesn't hit enemies because they hit you, he hits them because they thought about hitting you. And that's what we will be using to do this run. The boons we get during our runs aren't the only thing we have, so let's look at the other things that can help us out. There are some cards that won't have any use in a run like this, like anything dealing with Omega moves since they all do damage, but there are some things that still will, like movement speed, strength, death defiances, and of course because we're looking for specific boons, some rerolls couldn't hurt. With the familiars, Free Nose is an okay choice, gives more max health and blocks some range shots, but because we're going to be in melee range, that won't come up as much. Tula feels like the best option if we're not going for a strength build because an extra death defy won't hurt, but the problem is that when you sprint into Tula, they attack the nearest enemy, and that feels like commanding them to attack somebody, and that's not very pacifist. Gale gives move speed and dodge chance, which is good, and also does a good bit of damage, however, only does that damage 3 times, and that is not good, because we're going to be in these fights for a long time, so we want something more consistent. Hecuba gives max magic and stuns enemies, but the max magic won't be as useful outside of priming unless we get very specific hexes, and stunning enemies isn't actually as good because we want them to be trying to hit us. That leaves Raki, which, like Hecuba, automatically attacks, so we're not ordering them like Tula, but also, when they do attack these enemies, marks them, which gives us a chance to do critical damage. Lastly is the weapon choice, which doesn't matter as much because you won't be attacking or using specials, but you could go for the X to get more max life, or go for the staff to get more max magic. But now, with the preparation done, I equip the Poseidon keepsake and get ready to descend. And Zeus is here. What? So I had just gotten the ending to Hades 2 before starting this run, and because of that, Zeus was seeded to pop up next so that I could get the dialogue for that. But there is a way to get around this. Chaos.
Reattempting trial. Chaos trial done.
With that dialogue gone, I get ready to do another run, and would you believe me if Poseidon also had dialogue for the ending, which means no matter how many times I re-rolled, I would get the same boons? One more chaos trial later.
I choose otherwise.
The boon works fairly well, and I'm able to progress through Erebus at a reasonable pace. I get a Zeus door, and I get the Divine Vengeance. A good start. I get an Artemis encounter and pick pressure points, getting me up to a 5% critical chance on all the splashes mixed with Raki. And I use my first get out of jail free card and take a Poseidon special. I call it a get out of jail free because once my attack and special are filled, then I run the risk of having to take something that does damage for my cast or rush. Also, for anybody wondering why this is a pacifist run so late into playing the game rather than a pacifist playthrough starting from the start, it's because even though you get Apollo as your first boon when you start the game, there's a mandatory combat encounter before getting the boon, unlike when you just start a run and you get the boon first. But also, Apollo has seeded dialogue, which means that you get the same boon choices no matter what. I restarted the game like 5 times and kept getting the same 3. But now we're at Hecate, and she's a reasonable fight, but I take a lot of unnecessary damage because I'm not used to playing in melee range. I usually just spam range shots with the staff. This is new to me. With Hecate down, it's time to pick my next keepsake, and since I got the Poseidon boon I was looking for, I decide to switch to Aphrodite. Since I'm sticking close to the enemies, her weak can actually be pretty useful. In this next region, the boon is still performing well, but there are some encounters that go kinda slow because of enemies like this. I get an Aphrodite door and I get the magic gain that I was looking for, which automatically applies weak when I'm near enemies. And on the flip side, there are actually some rooms that go by pretty fast because of enemies like this. I get a curse that's applied by splash effects, and then I get a mini boss encounter that is very, very long. Afterward, I get an Apollo boon. I don't get the revenge boon, but I do get a damage boost for not taking damage. You don't have to guess how likely I am to keep that up. And after that, I get an hex. And the problem with some of these hexes is that they do damage. But there is one particular one that could help me, which is the healing. This does bring up how am I going to charge the hex, because I don't have the card equipped that automatically charges it over time. And I said Omega moves were out of the question because they do damage, but if I never hit enemies with the Omega moves, then it's still Pacifist, and I can charge the hexes to heal myself, and I think that's understandable. So I get some more upgrades for the hex, and then I get another Apollo boon. And I grab the dash, which doesn't do damage but does inflict daze, which can stop me from taking some damage, and that's good. But now we are at the next boss, and again, it's a reasonable fight, but I just make mistakes due to not being used to this playstyle. The healing hex does really help out though, and it's able to keep me up and get me through the fight. And once again, it's time to change the keepsake. And with a good enough build, I try a Silken Sash to build up some defense for the Kronos fight, but I can tell you right now, that armor is not making it. I immediately run into a problem in the first encounter of the next region with these balls that don't attack. They roll at me and can hurt me, but they do not trigger Poseidon's boon, which means I need to use other enemies to defeat them. I pick up a Hermes boon and pick Tall Order, which will give me 25% more damage if I could get one of my elements to at least 8. I fight a mini boss and lose my armor. Didn't even make it out the region, but I get an Aphrodite boon, and I pick up the attack boon to try to get my water closer to 8. I run into Echo, who gives me boon. And since my last night was the Poseidon Chaos Trial, I have some good options to pick from. I end up taking King Tide, and then I go to the next area and get a Zeus boon, where the only option I can take is air quality. Next, I get an Aphrodite boon and I make a very risky choice. I pick up Heartbreaker, which means that whenever I'm trying to do my hex, I will create heartthrobs that if they touch an enemy, that's the end of the run, because me using Omega move led to damage. However, they disappear after 6 seconds, and this does give me the last water I needed, so I take it. On to the next boss, and this one got me good. I ended up losing one of my Death Defies, but eventually they go down, and we are now on to the next keepsake. I go with the always reliable pick and get an extra Death Defy, and then move on. The enemies in this area hurt, but the good thing is, so do I. And I finally made it. It's almost time to see if this run is truly possible. I pick up one more Apollo boon for the road, and then I enter. This fight is tough. I thought I had good damage, and Chronos showed me I didn't. He showed me what real damage looks like. There goes a Death Defy. Still, damage is damage. How does that saying go? If he bleeds?
Here we go.
Just what you get.
I was unable to beat Chronos. Despite having so many boons and things going my way, I just couldn't do it, and something unforeseen happened during the fight. He started healing, and I couldn't stop it. Turns out, these enemies are pretty bad in a challenge like this, and they only count as attacking the first time they attach the laser. After that, I can't do anything about that unless Chronos happens to attack while near them, which means they just keep healing and healing. The other problem I had is, of course, I'm just kind of mid. I'm not that good at this game, and so I was taking a lot of hits, and the hits I was dealing out were not doing enough to outpace that. And this is where I almost gave up. But do you remember when I mentioned the problem with vengeance boons was that you take a lot of damage? Well, what if I didn't take a lot of damage? God mode is a setting that doesn't make it so you're invulnerable, but does reduce the damage you take. Starting at about 40%, every time you die, this increases by 2% until you get all the way to 80, and that is the max. And so I died a lot and got to 80%. I then switched the build a little bit. Instead of using Death Defies, I put on Strength, which reduces the damage I take by another 20%, and I think this could work. So, let's see. One last thing is, this was done on a separate save file, so I didn't have all of my stuff I have on my main one, but I did have enough. But, rest in peace, Raki.
This is my path.
And it works out. Hecate goes down, Scylla goes down, Cerberus goes down, and then it's on to Chronos.
Here we go. For the underworld.
There it is. Chronos is vanquished. So let's talk about what went better. Strength was great. Taking less damage from God mode, of course, helped as well. But also, one important boon that I didn't get in the first run that was really helpful here was Light Smite. The Apollo Vengeance boon helped out a lot in that healing phase of the Chrono fight, because it would get rid of all of the healing things if I just ran into him and took some damage. And that made it so I didn't have to basically start the entire phase all over again. Well, I think that answers the question. So thank you for watching. And if you have any other strategy that you think could work and be pacifist, let me know.
Here we go.